Hello, this is again Dr. Jimmy, and in the previous video I gave a brief historical rundown of the events of Legendary Truth in 2008. That was of course part 15, I believe. This is now part 16 and the final chapter, I hope to God, of Halloween Horror Nights history for the year 2008. Alrighty then, so what I'm going to now do is I've printed this out and I'm going to give you the information about the patients that we uncovered throughout the investigations. We discovered that she had 8 patients. Eileen Harrell was her first patient, who was the owner and illustrator of an ad agency. She was connected to the house The Hallow. This is the one who was obsessed with the Headless Horseman, and she had her go insane by presenting her with a dissevered head. Lieutenant von Stabler was a Navy pilot who was in the astronaut recruitment program. He was connected to the Interstellar Terror House. He had a fear of these strange symbols, and she presented a slideshow which showed the symbols that caused him to take a pen and stab himself with the pen, assumed to blind himself up, I think. It's been a long time. At any rate, the bloody pen became a talisman for Mary after that. He also went quite insane and had to be hospitalized. We assume that they were put into Shady Brook. Charlie McPherson was the photographer and a close friend of Boris Schuster. This was the fellow who was a freelance photographer, and he had a strange fear about the living dead for some reason. He would see strange images in the flashes of his photographs, causing him, I'm assuming that these strange ghostly images and zombie-like forms he saw in his photographs caused him to have a lot of problem with his flash photography and his work. He went to see Mary to overcome that, and she decided to put him in a coffin where he couldn't get out, and the flashing was going on to see what would happen. Unfortunately, the fear was so great he could not get himself out of the coffin, and he suffocated and died inside the box, the first patient to die. The third patient was Johnny Deedle, was an apprentice gunsmith who was a teenager, obsessed with comic books and terrified of strange alien comic stories that he was reading. Mary tortured him until he hung himself, deliberately to kill him. In that case, it was no longer an accident. Now she was deliberately killing her patients. Diane Bennett was a drama and vocal coach who was connected to the Scary Tales house in a way. Diane was having trouble with these strange stories. I don't remember exactly what it was. She gave her a safe word and had her with the mental patients. The patients, however, turned on her. She said the name Mary more than 3 times. She ended up getting killed by the mental patients in the room. Thornton Kesterson, I should have gone back and looked over some of these more closely. I'll give you a better example in a moment. Thornton Kesterson was a gem dealer and a diamond broker. He ended up getting roasted alive. He was connected to the Doomsday Story. Christian Kupsch was a doctor of psychiatry. He ended up dying horribly as well, in body collector's style. And of course, Boris Schuster was going to go to be a patient number 8. He went to, but when he got there, that's when something strange had happened. Another patient named David Grommel, which I love because it's David as in David Hughes and Grommel as in Kim Grommel. That name was not on a sign anywhere in the room. It was taken directly from 2 major designers of the event, from A&D. He was a boxer and an ex-con. He was the one who actually broke the mirror and drug her across it, killing Mary Agana, who then transformed into Bloody Mary on that fateful night. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what we discovered. Okay. So this is what we uncovered. Ultimately, we discovered that Mary Worthington, and this is taken from a document that is posted on the Horror Unearthed Facebook page. Sean Murphy put it all together. So kudos to Sean. Mary Worthington, a school teacher in the small town of Cary, Ohio, is killed on August 27, 1908. as a result of a Halloween prank orchestrated by the school handyman Aldridge Kesterson. 6 students, Louise Hatfield, George Van Stebler, Sean McPherson, Jim Deedle, Alice Dodson, and Jeremiah Kupsch, were also involved in the mysterious death of their teacher. One student, Thornton Kesterton, was not present due to the persistent goading by his father, Aldridge. The schoolmaster, Mr. Renshaw, found his schoolhouse in complete disarray with blood and shards of glass scattered across the room. All right, Mary Agana, daughter of Mary Worthington, in other words, Mary Worthington Agana. So apparently she married a dude named Agana, whoever he was, dies on June 20th, 1958. Dr. Mary Agana, daughter of Marie Agana, it's actually Marie Agana, thus granddaughter of Mary Worthington, receives a letter from Alexander Paul, her family attorney, and informs her of the wishes of her late mother. Mary received several valuable silver heirlooms that originally belonged to her grandmother. Most notably, she received a silver jewelry box that seems to possess her over time. It has a neat little music that plays. On June 25th, 1958, Mary receives a letter from the National Association of Mental Health, informs her board members have denied funding for her immersive fear therapy program. Dr. Gustav Heim, the director, states in the letter he's disturbed that Agana may proceed with her plan nevertheless. Agana opens up her facility, Living Fearlessly. Actually, it's called Fearless Living, I believe. Specialized treatment for fear-based ailments in 1958 to begin her immersive therapy program. She hires assistants from a local facility, believed to be ex-cons and mental patients. It's my belief that that's Shady Brook, for reasons that I've noticed over the years. Over the course of a few months, Mary sees patients, discovers new ways to cure them. However, due to the experience of Charlie McPherson, a freelance photographer hired by Boris Schuster, Schuster began an investigation into Agana and her clinic. As patients begin to disappear, Boris begins to wonder what's really going on. Mary suspects she's being watched, perhaps by Boris, as well as by her grandmother Mary Worthington through the mirror. Schuster makes an appointment with Agana on August 27, 1958, 50 years from the date of Mary Worthington's death. You discover the truth behind the mysterious psychiatrist. On that night, Mary Agana is brutally murdered. It says here by Boris Schuster, but that's incorrect, Sean. It was by David Grommel, the boxer. Her body is never found. Some believe that the spirit of Bloody Mary, none other than Mary's grandmother Mary Worthington, had been gradually possessed by Agana since she inherited her heirlooms. In 2008, Legendary Truth the Collective, which was started by Boris Schuster, begins back in 58, apparently, begins an investigation into the disappearance of Mary Agana. That may not be true now. We're discovering new things about the origins of Legendary Truth. In the current this year campaign, emails have gone out today. So, that's another story, though. Collective file operatives collect information and visit Dr. Agana's office. And on August 27, 2008, another 50 years, right? A manifestation of Bloody Mary is detected who are never heard from again. Dr. Calvin Thorncastle dispatches new operatives to collect additional information. That was us, of course. Now, here's what we discovered. Markham Harrell, an artist, married Louise Hatfield, a storyteller of Grimm's Fables, in 1920. They have a daughter, Eileen Harrell, on June 16, 1922. Eileen opens her own company illustrating children's storybooks in 1954, but quickly goes bankrupt. She then begins working for a publishing business and publishes children's classics in April 1955. Eileen also illustrated for comic books, most notably Atomic Comic, volume number 24, Creatures, based off the mysterious death of bar owner Jim Deedle. Eileen regularly attends the Kitty Cat Club bar, where she meets Michael Petty and draws illustrations on a napkin keepsake for Michael. Eileen makes an appointment on July 9, 1958 to see Dr. Mary Agana in order to cure her fear of myths and legends, particularly the Headless Horseman. Dr. Agana exposes her to a severed head, which sets Eileen into convulsions and unconditional hysteria. As a result, Dr. Agana arranged hospitalization and medication in a private facility. I'm not sure the chronology on that because Jim Deedle died after that, at least a teenager, unless that was his father, the original Jim Deedle. Admiral George von Stebler, retired Navy Admiral and Harbor Master, fathers a son, Lieutenant von Stebler, on December 11, 1936. Due to circumstances surrounding his father's life, Lieutenant von Stebler grows up with a fear of his infamous legend of Bloody Mary. Lieutenant von Stebler is rejected as an applicant to become an astronaut by the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics due to psychological distress. Okay, I'm not sure that's entirely correct. In order to help his son, who was facing Section 8 discharge in the U.S. Navy, and that's Lieutenant. Yes, Lieutenant von Stebler, actually his fear was of those mysterious symbols I told you about before. So, Sean, you've got a few things wrong here, but that's all right. In order to help his son who's facing a Section 8 discharge, U.S. Navy, George brings him to Dr. Christian Kupsch, who is a board member for the National Association of Mental Health. Unable to help Dr. Lieutenant von Stebler with his fear, George von Stebler becomes desperate for help. The Admiral suggests taking his son to Maria Ghana, who specializes in fear therapy, but Kupsch warns him not to bring his son there with her untraditional practices. Going against his opinion, von Stebler makes an appointment for his son to visit with Ghana on July 15, 1958, to cure his fear of visions of undefined symbols. Dr. Ghana exposes him to a slideshow, during which time Stebler first saw the symbols, lead to an uncontrollable night terrors. During the slideshow, Stebler is strapped in a seat that forces him to view the images, causing him to inflict several gashes and wounds on his own body with the pen. As a result, he is hospitalized. All right. Sean McPherson, a photographer, graduates from Ohio University and replaces John Neal as head magazine photographer. Sean fathers son Charlie on November 26, 1918. Charlie becomes photographer with the Metropolitan Tribune in 1948, but is fired in 1955. He becomes a freelance photographer, and his first job deals with photographing Thornton Kesterson, a gem dealer whose reputation is in disrepute. McPherson is hired by private investigator Boris Shuster to take pictures of Frank Bennett's infidelity against his wife Diane Bennett. McPherson makes an appointment on July 22, 1958 to see Dr. Mary Ghana, cure his fear of seeing ghostly images in his photography. Although knowing about his fear of the dark and enclosed places, Agana places McPherson in a glass box with limited air, gives him a choice to entomb himself in the box or open the lid and face his fear of the surroundings, which include dark room filled with flash bulbs illuminating ghostly images. McPherson chooses not to open the lid and he asphyxiates and dies. Jim Deedle opens the Butchered Buck Bar in 1935. In 1939, his sister Carla marries Peter Samish, a gun dealer who owns the company, Samish Gun Supply Wholesalers. Jim fathers a son, Johnny Deedle. On July 29, 1940, organizes Celebrationist Bar in 1940. Jim dies under unexplained circumstances that causes his son to move in with his uncle and become an apprentice gunsmith. Johnny reads the Atomic Comics Creatures, which illustrated by Eileen Harrell. The comic book focuses on the invasion of alien creatures with long tentacles that killed a man named Jim Deedle. This is traumatizing. Johnny quickly develops a fear of creatures living under his bed, which is presumably tied with his father's mysterious death. To protect the Butchered Buck, Peter Samish begins supplying shotguns to the bar in 1957. Samish begins to worry about his 18-year-old nephew and makes an appointment for him to see Mary Agana. Johnny sees Agana on July 30th, 1958, so he can stop his recurring nightmares of strangulation by octopus-like creatures. Agana blindfolds Johnny and ties ropes around his body to make it seem that he's being strangled. She gives him the choice to stand and continue to be strangled by the tentacles or step off a ledge into the abyss he so often fears. Johnny chooses to step off the ledge, which of course causes him to be strangled by the noose around his neck. She deliberately kills him, in other words. Charles Dodgson Sr., an unnamed miner, gives birth to a son. This, of course, is Lewis Carroll. Charles Dodgson Jr., who fathers a daughter, Alice Dodgson, who develops a stutter and as a result of speech impediment, both her father and grandfather possess. Alice mothers a daughter, Diane Bennett. Diane Dodgson becomes Bennett when she marries. That was the marriage certificate we found in the Asylum in Wonderland. She marries on November 21st, 1920. Diane becomes a drama and vocal coach, develops a fear of stories and fairy tales after reading children's classics published through Eileen Harrell's company. Diane marries Frank Bennett in New York City on March 25th, 1951. Frank becomes unfaithful to his wife, and Diane hires private investigator Boris Shuster to look into Frank's infidelity. Charlie McPherson takes photographs of Frank with his mistress, which ultimately result in divorce. In July 1958, the traumatic experience of Diane enhances her fear of stories that end with happily ever after. Diane Bennett makes an appointment on August 8, 1958, to see Mary Agana. Mary placed in the center of a circle. She is surrounded by hypnotized patients from a local facility. The patients began reciting lines from various fairy tales, which causes Diane to enter a severe bout of crying and hysteria. She can no longer handle the treatment. Diane recites a safe word, Mary. However, this is also a word that has been triggered into the minds of the patients to attack and brutally kill her after she says the word 3 times, while Dr. Agana is behind the two-way mirror. All right. Aldrich Kesterson moves from town to town around New England during the 1880s as a carpenter and coffin maker. Aldrich fathers a son, Thornton Kesterson, on March 9, 1891, in Bristol County. Aldrich suspected of criminal activity, possibly involving the smuggling of bodies to and from London as a result of the Ripper murders. In fact, he might actually be the Ripper. Aldrich's suspected relationship to body collector George Kupsch and the Ripper murders. In fact, Kupsch, whose real name is Chapman, by the way, is suspect of the Ripper murders. Actually, George Chapman was a suspect of the Ripper murders. The Kestersons permanently relocated to the Midwest in 1892. Strong evidence such as Thornton's school poems show that Aldrich is psychologically abusive to his son through childhood years. Aldrich was hired by Mr. Renshaw of the Cary, Ohio schoolhouse to be the handyman. August 27, 1908. He developed a Halloween prank that would target the school teacher Mary Worthington. He convinced 6 school children to participate in the ritual, while Thornton was scared by his father's plan and left the schoolhouse running into the cornfields. Aldrich's plan went too far, resulting in the accidental death of Mary Worthington, and left blood and broken glass shattered across the schoolhouse. As an adult, Thornton becomes a gem trader and travels around the world in search of precious and valuable gems. He becomes paranoid of various diseases. He might contact expeditions and develops a fear of fire, viruses, and cannibalism. Thornton visited the office of Christian Kupsch, a general practitioner at the time, to receive a variety of vaccinations in 1942 and 1943. His reputation as a reputable diamond broker comes into question in 1955 when a freelance broker, Charlie McPherson, caught Thornton smuggling diamonds and other precious gems into the country. Kesterson makes his appointment on August 18th to see Dr. Mary Agana in 1958 to cure his fear of being contaminated and, of course, of cannibalism and fire. Dr. Agana straps Thornton to a chair that is placed in front of an industrial jet. She tells him the flames from the jet will help to contaminate him, but she is roasted alive. Is he eaten afterwards? I don't know. There may be a connection between Mary Agana and Meats the following year, so maybe. After all, when Mary was in Cary, she might have frequented that butcher shop. Andrew Borden fathers a daughter, Lizzie Borden. Yes, the Lizzie Borden, in London, England, which doesn't make any sense because she was born in Falls River, Massachusetts, so I'm not sure about that. There's Sean. Andrew builds coffins for a living and noted for making coffins for 2 Jack the Ripper victims, Mary Ann Nichols, Elizabeth Stride. I'm not sure about that either. The autopsies for Nichols and Stride were conducted by George Chapman, who is under suspicion of being the Ripper. It is also believed that George Chapman was the founder of the body collector's outfit. Collects and murders people to sell their body parts to the black market. Listed along with Chapman's side job of being a barber, as in Sweeney Todd, in general practitioner, helped supplement his family income. In fear of being caught, George Chapman fled to the United States, changed his name to Kupsch. His son, born in 1892, Jeremiah Kupsch. George Kupsch returned to England in 1903 when his real identity, Serwin Klokowski, was discovered, and he was hung for murdering 3 wives. That's actually true. Back in the United States, Jeremiah Kupsch attended school in the small town of Cary, Ohio. When he turned 18, Jeremiah and 17-year-old Elizabeth Carroll of England gave birth to a son, Christian Kupsch, on May 5, 1910. At the Wyandotte County Hospital, Christian goes up to be a general practitioner and immunizes gem dealer Thornton Kesterson, so he can travel looking for exotic precious gems. Takes a break from his job, goes on a fishing trip in the summer of 1946 with Navy pilot von Stebler and his father, Admiral George Stebler. Curious about the human mind and starts of his developing fear of apocalyptic science, Christian becomes a doctor of psychiatry. He is given to make decisions due to his own developing fear of operations and cadavers, which probably emulated from the work of his grandfather. Kupsch is hired by Gustav Heim to be a board member of the NAMH. He is later approached by George von Stebler, who is requesting help for his son. He can't help, he sends her to Agana. On June 25th, Dr. Heim, board members of NAM, deny the grant to Agana, and let's see, where were we? Yes, it says that she kidnaps Kupsch and brings him to her office on August 20th, 1958, and brutally kills him by drilling a hole through his back in an attempt to cure him of his fear of dead bodies and gruesome operations. I'm not sure if he didn't go as a patient himself, willingly, but at any rate, that happened. Now, Boris Schuster, the private investigator, is hired by Diane Bennett to investigate the infidelity of her husband. We know that. We've already covered all of that stuff. So let's just get on to it. Because Charlie McPherson disappears, he begins to investigate Mary Agana. David Grommel goes in his place, and David Grommel is the one who kills Bloody Mary, or who kills Mary Agana. But the connections between all the people there are what we uncovered. All sorts of interesting things. Those are the bits I should mention. The birth certificate was uncovered on the same night that we had the meeting with Dr. Calvin Thorncastle, and some of the clues are really difficult. There are actually clues in brochures for the event where some of the letters were capitalized. There was a time clock that we had to figure out. There was all sorts of really difficult puzzles. It was quite a wonderful, thrilling thing, and ultimately, again, it turned out that all these people were connected. They were all connected to the storylines of the houses, as you can see in the scare zones, you know, and related to each other in weird ways. And ultimately, they were the school children's, the great-grandchildren of the school children who had, of course, killed Mary Worthington. And all this was uncovered. And you can find a lot of the videos of some of this stuff and the pictures on various sites. So I hope you enjoyed that. And that concludes my report, my horror history for 2008 and Legendary Truth campaign of that year, and concludes Halloween Horror Nights 18 Reflections of Fear. Next time, God knows when that will be, I can at last start talking about Halloween Horror Nights 19, ripped from the silver screen in 2009. Till then, have fun. I hear thunder. Peace.